Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Asiya, where we look to empower and educate the women of our communities and the girls that they are raising. Tonight's episode is all about girl power, how to create, nurture, and transform. As you know, this entire month, we have been showcasing a phenomenal woman who has been just doing some great things in their community, and tonight is no different. We are showcasing the last one. We saved the best for last. And we're showcasing another woman who is doing just that, just leaving a legacy, just trailblazing for other women to come after her. And we would love to honor her tonight. And her name, without further ado, is Kelly Espino. Welcome, Kelly.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. My cheeks hurt from smiling so much. Thank you.
Welcome. It is so good to see you. You look beautiful as always. And thank you so much for, joining me on the show tonight. As I mentioned, this is all about Women's History Month and talking about women that are really just doing some positive things to educate and empower those around them. And when I met you, we have a real unique way in which we met. So I would love for you to tell. Let's just start there.
Okay.
How did we meet, Kelly? Tell everybody how we met.
So I believe it was divine intervention, but it was 3 years ago, and I was really I've been a coach and a speaker for like 4 years. But the first year didn't really count because I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't make money. I didn't have clients. I didn't really know. So when I found you, I was really stepping into the speaker role, like owning that, embodying that. So what do you do when you are a new speaker? You don't really know what to do. You go on Eventbrite and you check out events, and I love women empowerment. So I saw your events and I just reached out, and I was like, I don't know, because there's not that many, that much space in the reach out messenger. So right. I was just like, hi, I'm a speaker. Here's my website. I would love to speak. And that was it, because I didn't even have enough time, like enough space. And then you reached out to me, and I was so honored to speak at your event. And I will say, from your event, I got another speaking event from one of your guests. And a couple of your guests have, invested in some of my services, my retreats. So I'm so grateful that I took that leap and reached out to you. And I'm so thankful for you for giving me the opportunity to.
Oh, thank you. I think that, it was remarkable. And that's what really impressed me, Kelly. It was just like, I was like, this girl don't know me from a can of paint. And you reached out to me and you were like, hi, my name is Kelly. I'm a motivational speaker. And you left me your website. And I thought, wow, the work that I do is all about empowerment. It's all about women empowerment and looking for speakers. And I was like, that was empowering. I was like, she doesn't know me, but her confidence was like up there, that she reached out to a complete stranger and was like, I would love to speak at your event. And so I would love for you to tell the audience, for those that are watching, that experience at that retreat, being that this was like the first time that you first of all, you stepped out and you was like, I'm really owning this space of motivational speaking and transformation, which is the theme of the show. What was the response that you got from you reaching out and just taking that leap of faith?
It was incredible. It was my second ever speaking event, but the first one was at a retreat that I was attending. So it was kind of like the facilitator was giving me like a favor, I guess. So it was the real first one. I never told you that, but I don't know if you noticed that or not, but your audience, your community was so empowering. They were so supportive. I remember they were snapping. And at the end, I loved it so much. At the end, I remember being in the bathroom and one of the women stopped me and she started crying and saying how much she resonated with my story and how much it meant to her. And I was so grateful and I was so thankful. And it was just, I'm telling you, your community is so heartfelt. Like they lead with their heart. It was so beautiful to witness.
You just said something that really stuck out. You said someone, saw you in the restroom and said they really resonated with your story. So for those that are watching, that are meeting Kelly for the first time, the fact that you're doing such empowering work, which is transformational and really helping people, change their life in such an impactful way. How did you get started? Like, what was your journey into that? Were you always this confident and, powerful? What's your journey?
That's so sweet. No, definitely not. And I love how, Jessica cares you created that because you needed that as a child. And it's funny because people always comment on my confidence, but if they would have only known that I was the most insecure person, and I still have my insecurities that I work through. Yeah. So for me, it goes back, I'll just like fast forward, but it goes back from childhood, you know, conditioning. I had a learning disability. I was always overweight. You know, I come from a Cuban household. So
I'm Latina, I'm Afro Latina too, so I get it.
yeah. So food was love. It was like feed you, feed you, feed you. And then you get bigger or fat, like they would say, and then they would criticize you while still trying to feed you. And like the messaging I got was so, you know, it affects you. It affects your self-esteem. And then I always compared myself to my older sister who was elegant and smart. I mean, she was valedictorian and she was beautiful and she was everything that I felt I wasn't. So being the younger child, I always compared myself. I never felt good enough. I always felt inadequate. And then fast forward to, but with that, despite all of that, I always had this inner knowing that I was meant to help people, that I was meant to make a difference in the world. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Like, it was just a knowing, but it was very interesting because I had this knowing, but I was very severely insecure. So fast forward to college years, I didn't know what to pick, but I felt, okay, let me go with social work because I knew at least social work, you help other people.
Right.
But everything within me, everything said, this is not my forever, but something tells me this is my right now. And when I went on that path, oh my, I had such imposter syndrome. I felt so not good enough, so not smart enough, so not thin enough, not pretty enough, literally insert word here, enough, that was me. And when I was going for my social work degree, I was doing what any really insecure, codependent woman would do. And I was I was drinking, I was drugging, I was, you know, being promiscuous. I was with people, with men that didn't deserve me, but it's because subconsciously I wanted to feel good enough. I wanted to feel validated. I wanted to feel seen. But in reality, what it did was just create a lot of shame and a guilt, and it didn't serve me. But I mean, that's where I was at the time. And I remember I graduated from my undergrad. I was going for my master's in social work and I got arrested. I'm like, arrested? Yeah. And I don't know if I shared that. I don't know if I shared that in the retreat you had, but
I'm not sure. I don't remember it. Maybe as me running around and doing what I was doing I didn't hear that part, but really?
Yeah, I got arrested for marijuana. I was 20 or 21. And I was a woman in a Cuban household. That does not happen. Oh my gosh. So the amount of shame, I remember my mom would not cry for anything. I mean, we've been to funerals, she wouldn't cry. That day when she found out I got arrested, she cried and she said, I failed you as a mother. And I remember feeling so distraught, and I felt so much shame and guilt. And you know what happens, like law of vibration, when you're already down, you tend to attract more things that are not for your highest good. So naturally I got into the most toxic relationship I've ever gotten into in my life. And I should have took it as a sign, because the day I got arrested was supposed to be our first date. Like I should have
like this is not starting off good.
yeah. And it was just so toxic. It was very abusive, very, very toxic. I got into like 2 car accidents in like 1 month. It was just like one thing after another, after another. Yeah. And I went for my master's for social work, and I remember interning in a substance abuse facility because I was so nervous that it was going to be on my record that I got arrested. So I said, okay, if this comes out, at least it's kind of known in the field that if you work in substance recovery, you tend to be in recovery yourself. So I thought maybe they'll
give you a pass.
Exactly. Luckily, they never did a background check, which, you know, I don't know. That's probably not the best thing to do, but whatever. And I remember interning there, and oh my gosh, I remember I was facilitating my first group ever, substance abuse group. And I remember I had my notes, and my notes were crinkled because I was sweating because I was so nervous. My heart was going, because I was so nervous because I was so severely insecure that I said, how am I going to help these people when I can't even help myself? How are they going to take me serious when I can't even take myself serious? I felt so not good enough in so many ways. And it was really, really difficult for me. And I remember researching anxiety medication because I just didn't want to feel anymore. And I felt so anxious. And I think my supervisor at the time kind of had this like pep talk with me, and like really was tough on me, and something switched, and I said, you know what? That's it. I'm taking back my power. And I left that relationship, and I stopped drinking and drugging, and I really got focused, and I got into law of attraction and affirmations and affirming like new opportunities are coming my way, and I love and accept myself. And I would over and over and over, and I attracted a network marketing company. There you go, company to me. And I knew in that moment, again, it was like social work. Something told me this is not my forever, but this is good. This is my right now. And I had, from the childhood, I always had this inner knowing that I meant to help people. I just didn't know how. And I call it a purpose identity crisis, because I really was like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? You know, I want to be fulfilled. Like, what's my purpose? And during this season of just bettering my life, personal development, and really like affirming in the network marketing business, you're mentoring. You like build a team, you mentor. And I remember I hit some milestone, and they had a training, like a 600 people training, and they invited everyone who hit that milestone to come up on stage to share like a 1 minute like tip or something. And I remember, oh my gosh, I started off like, hi, I'm Kelly. And by the end of the 1 minute, everyone was standing up clapping. And I was clapping it was just wild. It was so wild. And I remember shaking. And I have this documented actually on my Instagram. And I walked to the stage, and my mentor at the time was filming me. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Oh my God. And that was the moment I recognized.
That you knew.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I'm meant to be a coach.
This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah, because babe, it felt like the only word to describe the feeling was electrifying. I felt electrifying. And I'm like, right? I was like, this is why I did drugs, because I was chasing this feeling. And once I uncovered it, it was like, boom, clarity, you know?
I get it. I so get it, Kelly, because I remember growing up, I was, and I still am, you know, all of my friends, all of my family, everyone knows that I love to talk. And I remember growing up, my mom used to be like, you know, because I'm the youngest. So all of my siblings are like, my oldest one is 10 years older than me. My sister, who's the one before me, she's 5 years older than me. So everybody was like in school by the time I was born. And so it was just me and my mom at home. You know, my dad was at work. And I'm sitting here just talking my mother to death. And my mother was like, I would literally grab onto her leg and just walk around the room and talk. And she was like, this girl won't shut up. And I remember now I tease the family, and I'm like, see, when everybody wanted me to shut up, I'm like, I get paid to talk now. So I'm like, that's right. That was my person. So I totally get it. And it feels good because what you're talking about, but you mentioned something that was really, and I think some of us who are trying to find our way and not quite sure what our purpose is feeling that imposter syndrome, feeling like I don't quite belong here. I'm in a room full of people that you feel are living their most authentic life, that they're living their best life, and you feel like you're just living vicariously, really, through everybody else in the room. What was the moment for you where it really became your own, where you was just authentically that transformational speaker, where you knew, and what was that journey like to get to where you didn't feel like you was being an imposter anymore?
So I love that this is such a great question. And I really love us normalizing this imposter syndrome, this belief that, oh, you're not good enough, or maybe you got an opportunity because you knew someone, or, you know, it was luck or something. And it's so normal to feel this way, especially in the beginning. And I will say that every time you level up energetically, whenever you do something new, like, I mean, I don't know your personal experience, but I'm wondering, when you started this talk show, was there a little bit of imposter syndrome that may have creeped up for you, or no?
For me, I had more of the imposter syndrome when I was doing, when I started Jessica Cares, the organization, because it was all about empowering young girls. And yet I was not fully healed. So I almost got my high off of helping the other girls and seeing them push through what I still hadn't even pushed through all the way. Because when I started Jessica Cares, I was in that same type of toxic relationship you were in. And it was almost like, I'm trying to get out, but I wasn't quite ready to leave. My insecurities wouldn't allow me to leave. So Jessica Cares was like an outlet for me to feel not so much as a loser or a failure. So the
Wow.
girls in my program, I was like pouring everything that I wanted to do into them. And so I was, so I felt more of an imposter with that. With just when I started Conversations with Asiya, the talk show, it was more about Oprah, I'm coming for you. This is like 10 years fast forward. I was like, Oprah, I'm coming for your spot, girl. So it was a growth. It was a growth process. And that really, I'd say like the first 3 to 4 years, I felt like an imposter doing Jessica Cares. And I actually stopped Jessica Cares for like a couple of years. I didn't do anything, and I really invested in me and getting myself together. And when I came back, I was like, I'm going for it. And I haven't looked back since.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's beautiful. And I love your vulnerability. I love your transparency. I love how raw you are. And that's real life. Right? That is so real. Because whenever we do something new, our brain is going to try to protect us by keeping us stuck because it only likes what is familiar. So whenever we do something new, your brain's going to start creating all these stories, these BS stories of why you're not good enough, why you can't do it, why comparison. So it's so normal. And I love what you said, because that's really what I did too. It's the healing work. So, like, the healing work for me was like inner child healing. It was subconscious reprogramming. It was shadow work. It was, law of attraction. It was all these things, the books, but also, and very important ingredient was actually just taking action despite feeling like an imposter, because it's through the action taking and doing it despite your fears. That's what builds the confidence.
Yep, that pushing through. That's what helped me. And it was just like, in order for, and I think that's what makes our work, which is why I think both of us call each other transformational speakers, because for me, motivation is where you're motivated for the moment, but it doesn't call to change. It doesn't call for action, right? Transformation is where the change happens. It's where, look, I need to stop where I'm at, meet yourself where you are, and say, okay, I know I want to be here. What do I got to do to get there? And that's the grunt work. That's the hard work. That's the crying, and letting go of things and people and all of that stuff. That's the really hard stuff. And so for you, as far as like the work that you do, when did you know I did the work? I did it.
I honestly feel like you're always doing the work, though. Like, I don't think
you were hoping you was going to say that. I was hoping you were going to say that. Yeah, because for the viewers, I want them to know there's never a moment where that's just it. Yeah,
exactly. Like, I truly believe this earth is it's like a school for us, like it's an earth school where we're here to learn and grow and evolve. And that's like, I truly believe we're always going to be healing until we're like done in this lifetime, like, and there's no shame in that. Like, sometimes on Instagram, like, I'll message people and I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of you, celebrating you. And they're always like, I'm still a work in progress. And I'm like, we're all work in progresses. Like, you're in
celebrate your wins along the way, right?
Exactly. So I know for me personally, like, but at every level of expansion, there was a new, like, just doing it despite the fear, like my retreats. It was during a season, it was 2018. It was a season where I was broke as a joke, or whatever they say the expression is. Like, I remember I left my job, my day job as a social worker, February 2nd, 2018. And I had maybe like literally $700 in my accounts, and I had monthly bills that were way more than that, right? But I just took the leap, and I had one group program that I was offering and like 2 or 3 VIP clients, and that was it. And for the first couple of months, it was cool until the summer of 2018, when I was so broke. I literally had like I want to say like $3 in my checkings and $7 in my savings. I maxed out credit cards, 0 on my PayPal, and I was struggling hard. It was a very hard season for me, because talk about imposter syndrome, because I'm there telling people your circumstances do not define you, right? worthy no matter what. You're worthy because you're alive. Your circumstances don't define you, blah, blah, blah. And then I recognized that, oh my gosh, I'm allowing my bank account to define me, to make me feel like I'm not
Mm.
worthy. Talk about crying. When I had this realization, because I was in survival mode. I was in scarcity. It was
Right.
hard for me to even see that. And once I uncovered that and I said, oh my God, I'm literally going against everything that I preach. Like, I'm a fraud. But what helped me, what I ended up doing was journaling. And I was journaling and I was setting the intention to connect with spirit. And I was just journaling all my fears. And I was just like, I'm an imposter. I'm a fraud, blah, blah, blah. And what came through, I truly believe, was from spirit. And it was this idea of, Kelly, this mission chose you. You didn't choose this mission, this message. So you are human and you have to do the work, the healing work, to get into alignment with this mission. So you're not a fraud or a phony. You're not. You just have to do the work to get in alignment with it. So what came from this experience was I birthed the retreats. And my first retreat was a win, but a fail in regards to, it was sold out, but I didn't know what I was doing price wise. So I ended up investing. I ended up adding in more money than I received.
And you got back.
Exactly. But it was all I needed, because having a taste of a retreat, I was like, oh my God, I need to do this.
Do this again. Yeah.
Exactly. And you live and you learn. And now when I do retreats, I actually I get profit, which is great. But my first 2 retreats, I lost money, and it was okay because I needed that to get me out of that season. So I'm sorry. I know I cut you off a lot because I wanted
no, keep talking. This is all about you, Kelly. This is all about you, your journey, your work. You actually said something so profound. And I think this happens to a lot of us as we're moving into evolving, leveling up, whatever you call it. And I think that in the moment of feeling like an imposter, you're going through the very things that you're teaching about. But I think that's what makes you relatable.
Yeah.
Because you can actually use the words, the expressions, the emotions so pure and relevant to your audience, because they're like, yes, that's how I'm feeling, because you've lived it, or you may still be living it, but your choice. And that's where transformation happens. It's making the choice to say, look, I know where I'm at, but I know where I'm going. And this is just a temporary space that I'm in. And some people don't get to that. So the audience that we speak to, they haven't quite made that decision yet. And so you're still, even though you're not where you want to be, you still have made the decision that your purpose in moving forward is going in this direction, whereas the audience that you may be speaking to may not have even made that choice. So that's what I learned in that imposter syndrome is like, no, you're there. And although you're going through your journey in the space that you're in, they're in another journey in the space that they're in, and you're trying to get them to level up just like you. And so we're all kind of leveling up together. You know what I mean?
It's so powerful that you said that. And I always say spirit, universe, Allah, whatever, you resonate with, always teaches us what we're meant to teach other people. So I totally agree with that. And I really do feel that's why you're so memorable and transformational, because you draw from your personal experience and people can relate to that. And in this world today, in modern, like contemporary society, we're craving authenticity. We have reality shows that are not even real. Like, we want that authenticity, and we want to normalize this human experience, that it's not all rainbows and butterflies, and there's highs and lows and adversities and struggles and pain, and that's okay. That is all part of the journey,
Absolutely. That's how you appreciate the wins and those good moments, is because you know where you came from. Now you have a unique audience, Kelly. I remember even when you first sent me your bio and everything, and I was reading it, I was like, okay, what exactly is this? Remember, we had that conversation, and you said you're a spiritual transformational speaker. So for those who are meeting Kelly for the first time, what is that? Because most people just introduce themselves as a life coach or a transformational motivational speaker, but you specifically put that you're a spiritual, coach or transformational speaker. So how is that different from just a transformational speaker?
Yeah. So everyone is different in how they identify with spirituality. Because I know for a while, I'm like, do I say that? Do I not say that? Because I know a lot of people tie spirituality to religion, and it's not, for me personally, it's not religion. But it also is a big part of me, because when I was just doing social work and I was just doing therapy, the transformation that my clients would receive, very small. Like, I'm just going to be honest, it was very small. Once I started incorporating spiritual practices and spiritual beliefs into my sessions, the transformation, the component of therapy plus the spiritual practices and beliefs created such transformation from the inside out that once I saw it, it's one of those things where I can't unsee it. It was
You couldn't go back.
Yeah, it was so powerful. And what I always say, spirituality, it's not one size fits all. The rules there are no rules. Because once I got into this lane of spirituality, spiritual transformational coach, I thought I had to be spiritual by, liking yoga. I'm sorry, I've done like 20 different classes of yoga. I'm just not a fan.
Not your thing.
I thought I had to be a vegan. I thought I could never curse again. I thought I had to eat like green smoothies and stuff. Like, I genuinely thought that to be spiritual. I know, right? You're laughing. So once I uncovered, like, what, this is making me less spiritual, because I'm not being my
not yourself.
Exactly. I'm trying to mold myself into what is spiritual. Like that. So now I'm very much like, I feel like a rebel. Like, I'm always like, there are no rules. Like, do you, be you. That's all that matters. So when I say spiritual coach or whatever, it's just that I believe in higher power. I believe that even through the pain, through the struggle, even though when you're in it, it's so hard to see, I know there is a blessing there. I know that there is a higher purpose there. And I also know that even though I may feel alone sometimes, I'm never alone. And it depends on what you believe, but I believe that I have angels and I have spirit guides and I have my ancestors and I have spirit, and that just knowing that belief, whether you want to believe me or not, it's totally okay. But for me personally, that helps me navigate through this human experience with so much more compassion, and I feel more comforted and guided. And yeah, it's just a game changer.
Wow. So now that you've even transformed how you do your programs and price your programs and retreats and things like that, what's a day in the life of a retreat? Like, if someone were to go to your retreat, what could they expect being at a retreat, being that that's your approach? So it may not necessarily be yoga and vegan food and stuff like that. What would be your approach like to, healing? What would that look like?
Oh, I love that you asked that. And it's funny because due to COVID, I haven't had a retreat recently, but in the past I would be like, on my Instagram stories, I'd be like, a spiritual or other people's spiritual retreat, and it's like yoga and it's all like vegan food, and then it's like, and ours, and then it's like we're twerking and we're having like so much fun. So
did you just say twerking?
Yeah, I'm thinking of this one chick that she was like twerking, and it was great. It was great. But so I do offer other things, but retreats are my passion. I love community, but I do have I offer a bunch of other things, but yeah. So the retreats, typical day. So the retreats we do are very much, because I teamed up with a girlfriend who's incredible. She's also another transformational coach, and it's all about spiritual empowerment. It's about community. It's about self-healing. It's about taking back your power and really connecting with your inner child. So it's very, very intentional, and it's very safe, and it's very one of community. We stress that like no other. And we do a lot of healing work. We do a lot of learning about the ego and your intuition and subconscious reprogramming, how to reprogram your subconscious mind. And we do inner child healing, and then we do a shake your soul dance class. So we invite a instructor to come in. Yeah, and it's so much fun. And we wait to do that on Sunday because it's a 3-day retreat. So by Sunday, everyone already is connected and we let loose. And Sunday is always kind of like the self-love day that we decide, and we get a therapist, and we have an energy healer, and it's amazing. And I've gone to retreats, so I always knew what I would want to offer in a retreat, because this is what I would want,
Right. And I think all of us, we have a village, we have a tribe that we speak to, and that resonates with us. So you mentioned COVID. how has that impacted your business? Has it drawn more people to you because of isolation and because of, some people are actually going through depression,
Yeah.
losing jobs, and it's really triggering, maybe emotions that they didn't have before or didn't even know was there. Has that impacted your business where you're actually having to deal more with that?
So I will say I'm really grateful that in the beginning of COVID, my business actually expanded tremendously. I was making more money in my business than I ever did as a social worker. You too? Good for you. Yeah. And at first I was a little surprised, but then I thought, no, this makes so much sense because you're forced to focus on yourself. You're forced to look in the mirror and be like, what's serving
Absolutely.
you, what's not, and people need support, and they needed that. So yeah, and I will say it slowed down more now than last year, maybe because it's still going on. I'm not really
Right.
sure. Maybe it's me. Maybe I had to check, pivot, or like just do something differently.
Hmm.
Regardless, I'm still, I'm grateful because I can still pay the bills and I still can do what I do. But my soul is craving retreats so bad, so bad.
Me too. I'm with you. And I think a lot of people, I know a lot of the women that have come to my retreats, they're like, I actually had someone that actually posted up, I'm so missing the retreat. And they posted up a picture of the retreat from like almost 3 years ago. And they're like, I'm so in need of a retreat. So speaking of that, have you had a particular client? I mean, you don't have to mention their name, but do you have a client? We all have someone that kind of touches your heart or tugs at your heart. Like this is the one that you've taken that journey with them and you've actually seen the transformation. Do you have a client like that? That when you first met them, they were really not in a good space, and through taking your courses or your one-on-one coaching, you've really seen them go from point A to literally point Z.
Yeah, oh, I love that question. Yes, I'm thinking of one client that she's been working with me for a while, on and off. And she's was a VIP client, and then she came to one of our retreats, and she experienced when we first started working together. She just left her marriage. She wasn't really like, she just had this inner knowing that her partner wasn't who, and she had kids, wasn't who she was meant to be with, but she didn't know what she needed, and she was
Yeah.
hearing her intuition, and she was thinking she was crazy, and she just had a baby, like she was in postpartum, like she was experiencing a lot, and she's like, who does this, because her partner loved her dearly, but she just wasn't fulfilled, so she
Mm.
found me, and we started working together, and through us working together, we uncovered, she had a lot of childhood sexual trauma, and
Mm.
she would compartmentalize her trauma, and she would call it the basement, where everything that she's experienced, all the trauma, she would store in this basement, and every week we would kind of chip at the basement and see where she's at, and chip at the basement, and over time, I mean, the retreat really solidified it for her, because she never was able to share about her abuser at the retreat. She shared about her abuser,
Mm.
she even said his name, which was huge for her, because I know it was
Yeah.
huge. She had, like, and she was resisting it for so long, and then she finally
Mm.
had a breakthrough, and she was able to talk about it and not cry. I mean, she did cry, but towards the end, she didn't have that emotional charge. It was almost like she was now free, and it was so beautiful. And she went back home, she got a promotion at her job that she didn't even know she was up for. Now she published her own book on Amazon, and she's on this website. Yeah, because she always loved to write, but she didn't think, like, she didn't think she could.
The
And
imposter syndrome.
yeah, right, exactly. And now she's like putting poems up, and she's just so grateful. And every once in a while she'll reach out to me, and she'll be like, I had a breakthrough with my mom, we did deeper forgiveness, and she's so
Mm.
grateful. And I love seeing that. And I mean, I'm sure
Exactly.
you have many testimonials yourself. I could only imagine.
And that's why I asked that. I was like, when we're in this work, people, they ask, why do you do that? What's your why? And it's those moments that you were just talking about. It's those whys. It's those moments where you see someone really not loving themselves, almost disliking themselves to a point where now they're actually using even some of that pain to propel them, to fuel them, to transform and say, look, this is not going to define me. Like those are those moments that you're just like, see, this is why I do what I do. And it's like there's no words,
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're inspiring other people because when they do this healing work, they can now speak their truth because there's no more shame involved. Like there's no more
Exactly.
guilt. So they can speak it in a place of empowerment, and people feel that and people resonate with that. And people love, again, the authenticity and love knowing that they're not alone. And
And
it's
that
so
is possible. And
mm-hmm.
that is possible. I think, I always tell my girls and the women in my program that when I was, molested when I was a child. And, what I always tell girls that, or women that have gone through that, through my program, is that for so long, we're wearing someone else's shame. Like, that's not my shame to wear.
Yeah.
And once I get to that point where, once you get to that point where you realize that this was not your fault, that this is not your shame, this is
Yeah.
not your guilt. Once you find it, it literally almost feels like this big heavy armor that's been sitting on your chest,
Yeah.
is finally released. And I think everyone wants to have that feeling. And when you actually see someone in real time saying, "I've felt the very things that that person may actually be feeling," and say, this was my blueprint," it gives hope. It
Yeah.
gives hope to someone who's just like, I can get past this. That I don't have to feel like this for the rest of my life. And that's really important in that transformational work that we do. So aside from your retreats, your coaching and stuff, I know you have a new podcast, or a podcast that you've been doing, called Empowered You. So tell what is the podcast about?
Yeah, it's been around for 2 years. I'm like shocked. Like starting next week is 2 years, and I'm like, wow. So yeah, it's Empowered You podcast, and it's a personal and spiritual development podcast. So it's basically sometimes I have guests, and I invite guest healers from all different healing modalities because there's so much out there. And a lot of times I share personal experiences and some lessons, some storytelling. I have certain series, like I have a fail forward series where I invite guests on the show and we talk about their so-called failures. And the whole point of that is to reaffirm, is to not reaffirm, is to what is the word? Like change your association with failure.
Right.
You know?
And the words have power. So when you use words like failure, I mean, obviously that's going to bring negative emotions and negative connotation to that experience. Whereas if you flip it, you can use it for good and propel you to something better. I totally get it.
Exactly, babe. Exactly. And I'm all about your stories, your power. Exactly what we're talking about. And I remember at your your event 3 years ago, my speech was called "Your Story Is Your Power."
That's right.
It's very on brand for me without even realizing. I love when people share their like hero journey, like their ups and downs, and they again normalize the human experience. And I always say for the listeners, like my goal is to help you normalize this experience, but also to help you tap into that inner wisdom, that inner like warrior that is within you, and really empower them to recognize their power and their ability to create the life they want, and that anything is possible and their circumstances don't define them. And I love to expand their mind with all these different healing modalities, knowing that not everything is going to work, is going to,
Not a one size fit all.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's going to be somebody that you're going to have on there like, oh, I resonate with that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
You said that you said when you were younger, you used to journal a lot. Is there any books coming our way?
Oh my God, that's so weird that you said that. I don't believe so, but I've been told so many times by psychics, I kid you not, it was at your retreat. Someone messaged me on Facebook and said, "Hey, what's the name of your book again?" And I was like, "Whoa, Spirit has
talk about forward thinking, right?"
Yeah, and I've been getting these signs like for years, but honestly, like it doesn't feel like a book is being birthed through me at this time. But
at least not right now.
Yeah. What about you? Because
I'm actually working on book number 2.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, when you saw me at the second event of a guest that was at the retreat, she had an empowerment retreat, and you was the keynote speaker, and this was in Philadelphia. At that event, that was when my book first came out, and I had a vending table there, and I'm on book number 2 now. Yeah,
wow.
I'm on book number 2. Yeah, I'm writing it in the. So I actually just announced it, I think, to everybody here. So I'm not going to go too much into detail, but yeah, I'm writing book number 2 as we speak.
Wow, congratulations. I'm so curious, for the first book, did you have a little bit of imposter syndrome with writing or no?
No, because that one I was really speaking, and I'm going to tell you that journey with the book, and this is why I say, authenticity is so important because when I first started that book, it was 6 years before I actually published it.
Wow.
It's a 10 chapter book. I wrote the first 6 chapters um, in 2 days. I literally went to a hotel, stayed at a hotel, me and a friend. She was writing her book, I was writing my book. And we was like, write your book in 2 days. And we stayed at a hotel. I mean, we literally shut off everything. No TV, no social media, no phone, no nothing. The only thing we had was room service.
Wow.
And we just sat up here and wrote and wrote and wrote. And I wrote that book. I wrote the first 6 chapters. When I wrote the seventh chapter, it was at home, and it was about my trauma as a child. I had to put that book down.
Ooh.
I had to put that book down, and I put that book down for a few years. I put
Wow.
that because it was like reliving it, just the whole thing. It was just like writing it was very detailed. So I had to go back to feelings and spaces that I really just was like, after 40 years, but it did spark me to have the first conversation and finally telling someone about it. Up until that point, I hadn't told anybody. And I had told my father for the first time what had happened. And a year later, my father passed away. And he was like my best friend. So that book was like, that was on the back burner for a while. And when I felt, at that point, a year later, I actually converted to Islam. And that was when I started to really, build up again. And 2 years later, that's when I wrote the book. I finished the last 2 chapters of the book and put it together. So by the time I put the book out, there was no longer an imposter syndrome. I had did the grunt work. I had literally faced, what had happened to me. I had finally spoke to someone, and that's what I was talking about before, taking off that shame that wasn't mine to begin with. Just doing all of that and then just saying, look, I'm going to put that out. And that took a lot for people to know. And there was some family members that didn't even know what had happened to me by the time I had published the book. But I was ready to tell my truth. That was my truth. And I was like, I'm not going to lie about it. I have nothing to be ashamed of. And the person that I feared the most telling was my father. And he was so compassionate when it happened. So that gave me the feel. It was losing him that really just was like, I need time to heal. So by the time I published the book, there was no longer an imposter syndrome. I had really embraced the fact that I was, doing this. I had restarted, Jessica Cares and was doing Jessica Cares. So at that point, when I wrote the book, I was ready. So that's why I said, may not be now, but I think a book is definitely in Kelly's future.
Oh
For
my
sure.
gosh. So powerful. And if you don't mind me asking, did you get therapy or did you do self-healing?
Oh, no, I did some therapy. It was really the self-healing that was more impactful.
Really?
And that came from that first journey of doing that was telling my dad. Because even when I went to therapy, I wasn't ready to tell anybody what happened. I thought people were going to judge me because the person who molested me was the same sex. So I thought I was going to.
Oh no. Hi guys. I guess we'll wait. Oh, there she is. Oh, there you are.
Yep. I don't know what happened. I think it's been raining over here. So even though I went through counseling, I really wasn't ready. I really wasn't ready to share what I had gone through. But after becoming Muslim and really connecting, with God and really healing from losing my father, I was like, you know what? I'm ready to share my story because I know there's someone that has either gone through this, that need to hear that it's not their fault and it's not their shame, and that it's not all bad. And it was me going through that, and by the permission of God, I was still not jaded. I was still able to be a good person, and I felt blessed that He made me with that heart that although I've been through what I've been through, I could still be a good person or try to be a good person. And so I wanted other people to know that it's not weakness. It actually takes strength to go through something and still be a good person. That takes a lot, you
Mm,
know. So
yeah.
yeah, I knew that. So, and Kelly, I'm listening to you now, and you're talking about your journey. And I never did drugs. I watched the show Intervention, and sometimes I hear the stories, and I'm like, they're so similar to mine. And that was the journey that they took, was using drugs. And I'm like, I'm listening to you, and yet you were able to turn that around and become the woman that you are now, or actually embrace the woman that you always was. you know
Yeah.
really embrace the woman that you always was. And it's so beautiful. And I saw how the audience at the retreat just totally connected with you.
Mm.
I
Aw.
saw that, and I was like, this is the first time. And everyone was like, oh, where did you meet Kelly? I'm like, this is the first time I'm meeting her too.
I know you really took a chance on me, and because I don't even think I had anything in my website to really show you that I could speak. So I don't even know. You really
You
took a
had
chance.
one video, and I just felt what really grabbed my attention, Kelly, was the fact that you believed in yourself to even approach somebody and say, look, I have a message, this. And you told me what I sent you, a speaker's request form, and you filled it out to the T, and you was like, this is what my topic is going to be about. I was like, why not? You know what I mean? I was like, she seemed like she got it together. Why not?
Wow.
And you came in there, and I think you were the first speaker. You were the first speaker of the day. And
Yeah.
you set the tone. You set the tone, and everyone was like, yes, so it really,
Wow.
that connection. And I do believe that nothing happens by mistake. I think that we're all brought together for a reason. And it's been beautiful watching your transformation, myself, from that first retreat to even now, and seeing the retreats that you're doing, the podcast that you're doing, even
Yeah.
your weight loss journey. Because I remember you mentioned earlier that you were overweight, and that was something that caused insecurity in you. You even went through, or I think all of us at the retreat saw your weight loss journey. What was that like?
Yeah, no, it's very funny because I released a lot of weight, but then I gained it back again. So I'm working
Mm,
on, so what I recognized was that I was kind of not almost like shaming myself to weight loss. Like I was, wanting to lose weight. And then once I would start releasing weight, then I would be like, oh, I love myself. I love myself. And I recognized it was superficial self-love. It wasn't really real. And I remember I did this like crazy detox. It was like a 40-day detox. And afterwards I recognized I hired a coach because it messed up my mind so much. And she's like,
wow.
Kelly, you were eating, a newborn eats more calories than what you were eating. So it was crazy. And it really
Wow.
messed me up physically, energetically, inside. Like I didn't get my cycle for
Mm,
like months. It really messed me up. And through that experience, I realized through journaling again, Spirit told me that I have to love myself first and foremost and then release the weight, because all these times I've tried, because I have a history of yo-yo dieting, it's the reasons have never been pure. It's always been superficial. It's been egoic. And that I need to love myself and accept myself and embrace myself here and now while working towards releasing the weight. So it's been a journey, and I talk about it in my podcast because it has been a journey, but I have faith that I'm going to heal this relationship I have with food this lifetime. Like it's gonna happen.
definitely. I mean, I think that saying that past performance is a predicator to what you can do in the future. And I believe that. I mean, you've overcome so much, Kelly, from drinking, drugs, and low self-esteem and things like that, to where you are now, and continuously growing. I think eating is just the next thing that you're going to overcome, just as
Thank
much.
you.
So what can people like, now, oh, this is the question that I wanted to ask you. As far as your work, is it gender specific? Like, do you just, like, my organization just works with young girls and women? Is yours that way too, or do you work with both?
I work with both. Technically, my messaging and I really am talking to women, but I've worked with both. However, very limited. I mean, I
Right.
can literally count 5 men I've ever worked with in the past 4 years, and it's unfortunate because, oh my gosh, the men need it. The men need it so bad, especially the inner child healing. I had one man brave enough to do an inner child healing session. And what his presenting issue coming in was a fear of commitment. He never understood why relationships never lasted. And we did two inner child healing sessions with him. And in a year, he got engaged and now he's married. And
wow, that's another testimony right there.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's wild. And I'm just like, more men need to, because I feel like we're so conditioned to not feel and to shove everything in and to think that, you know, coaching or therapy, oh, that's for women, and it's so sad.
It's so not. And I think you're so true. I always say that, you know, I have Jessica Cares and I'm like, can somebody make a Michael's Cares, or, you know, do something for the men, you know, because we're empowering all of these girls and women, but our men are still looking to be healed. And that's hard to, you know, when you're at a certain place emotionally, it's very difficult to then connect with someone who still hasn't healed yet. So it's like, we gotta help our boys and help our men heal those little boys, you know, inside. So I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. So what do you have like coming up? Like what things do you have coming up? What are you cooking up?
Oh, today I actually just launched an inner child healing immersion, which is a 1-month container. It's very like intentional. It's very transformational. It's very safe, and it consists of 3 inner child healing sessions. It's bi-weekly. Well, technically 2, and then 1 is a coaching call just to integrate and to support the healing and the shifts. They have 24/7 access to me. I have fun at Oracle cards Mondays and Fridays for them. So that's like a really intensive. I found inner child healing has been life-changing for so many of my clients, and it kind of, I fell into this, and it's now kind of like my zone of genius. And I just love it so much. So that is an offering I've offered. Soon I'm hoping retreats will come back.
Yes. Have you thought about doing any virtual retreats?
I just feel like it's not
the same.
powerful. Yeah, it's not the, and I get, like, I've done master classes and masterminds on virtual, and one of my best friends is from Florida. I've never met her, but only virtual, and she's one of my best friends for like 6 years. So there is so much power in virtual setting, but once you've experienced the actual physical community of a retreat, you can't recreate that. And then and especially when you're in your own room and you're in your own office, it's so easy to like look at your phone and get distracted. Versus when you're outside of your normal, like everyday,
and have to focus on healing.
Exactly. It's so different. It's so different.
Absolutely. I totally get it. I totally get it. If someone is listening, Kelly, and they're like, wow, I really like her message. I like, you know, that style of, you know, the whole twerking, the whole inner child thing, the whole, you know, you is you, and, you know, there's no rules. If someone really resonates with that, where can they find you?
My podcast, if you want to get a little bit more feel of who I am and my energy, and definitely my podcast, Empowered You Podcast. It's on all platforms that stream podcasts. Instagram, I'm very active on Instagram at It's Kelly Espino, or you can go to my website at kellyespino.com.
So your website is kellyespino.com. Your social media handle on Instagram is Kelly Espino?
It's Kelly Espino.
Oh, it's Kelly Espino. Okay, great. Okay, so that's where they can find you, reach out to you if they want to get one-on-one coaching. So you do one-on-one coaching as well?
One-off sessions, VIP, like 3-month coaching. I have 1-month container now. I do master classes periodically. I'm always providing value. Every Thursday, I do like this segment on Instagram of taking back your power. So I'm very active, and the podcast, there's a lot of free content that's very valuable.
Wow.
So yeah.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. What I want to ask you is, being that you're the last guest for Women's, you know, History Month, and knowing that there's still a lot of women that are on that journey of healing, some that want to start on their journey of healing but haven't, and they're afraid, what would you say? So it's a 2-part question. What would you say to the woman that's on her journey but not quite where she wants to be? What would be your message to her? And for the one who's just like so afraid to, just like what you did, just take that leap of faith, what would be your message to that young lady?
So for the woman that is just like so afraid to take the next step, I just want to say, I hear you, I feel you, I honor you, because I mean, we've both been there, we've all been there 100%. And I say this with love. But if nothing changes, then nothing changes. And
Mhm.
yes, and a lot of times our mind is going to make it seem like it's going to be so much worse. Like we're going to open these can of worms, and I'm going to go into full-blown depression and anxiety and panic attacks. And your mind makes it like the worst case scenario at all times. And I'm here to say that it doesn't have to be that way. And not, depending on where you're at, of course, get support. I'm always going to be for support, whether it's a therapist, a coach, a mental health counselor, whatever, someone you feel safe with. But just know that you are so much more powerful than you give yourself credit. And the healing work, although there's highs and lows and, it's heavy stuff, it is so incredibly worth it. If I had to go back in time, I would do it all again, because there's the
sooner.
yes, right.
Yes.
The magic, the wisdom, the so much.
Purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And to keep to leap. And you just know that you are so much more stronger than you think. You're braver than you feel, and you are so powerful beyond measure. And when you doubt that, look back in your history. Look back at all those times where you wanted to give up, where you wanted to throw in the towel, where you may even wanted to leave this planet, but you didn't. You kept on keeping on. And what does that show you? That shows you that you are powerful, that you are resilient, and you have a credible ability to persevere. So keep going.
I heard that.
Cool.
And for the one that's on her journey, like she's taken that leap.
Yeah.
And she's feeling the pain of embracing, certain things that maybe she wanted to bury. Yeah. What would you say to her?
Also, keep going. And I tell myself that a lot. Like whenever I hit like a new milestone in my business, I always tell myself, thank God I didn't give up. Because there's so many times where you want to give up, so many seasons in your life, because we don't live in a perfect world. We're going to experience loss and grief and uncertainty. And if 2020 didn't teach us anything, it showed us that we have no control and nothing is certain. Certainty is an illusion. So I would just say,
we're definitely not in control of that.
I would just say keep on keeping on. Just remember, nothing is forever. Everything is temporary. I know when I went through that rock bottom in 2018, what the messages that kept coming through was like, this too shall pass. Like, just keep going, one day at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. And I look back to that time and I'm like, Kelly, thank you for not giving up. And there was times where I would look at like Indeed.com and look at, jobs to potentially apply for. And I never applied to even one job because I just felt so like my body would just contract, and I knew I had to honor it. Like,
yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I went through that too as an entrepreneur. I just was like, okay, this is not my month. Maybe I'm just going to do this part-time and get, and I said, I was in the banking industry for like 27 years. And I said, and now I had, worked my way up. I had 3 kids I had to take care of. So I couldn't have like an entry-level job. I had to push to go up. And so I was an assistant vice president at the bank and branch manager and all this stuff. And so I fired my boss. I fired my boss. Right. So when I started doing this full time, I remember that first year was easy. That second year came, Kelly, and it was just like, what? Did I, was that the right choice? And then I said, well, maybe I'll just get an entry-level position. I'll just get a part-time telejob so I can just have some steady money and still keep doing it. Mm-hmm. God was like, I don't know what part of I'm your employer don't you understand, but you're not getting a paycheck unless I give it to you. And that was it. That was it for me. I've never applied for a job again. So I totally get it. It's a beautiful feeling. It really is.
And I will say, if I could go back in time, I would have stayed at my day job for a little longer and not have just $700, because Kelly,
you wouldn't advise that.
I wouldn't advise that. I know I needed it because I almost need to get really hard lessons for me to get it. So I know I needed it that way. But and there's definitely times where, like a per diem job, it's cool. Like there are right now jobs to get you to where you want to go, and that's more than fine. They don't define you. They don't take away from you. And what I like to say, like what I like to tell myself is that the millionaires out there, the billionaires have like 8 streams of income. So it's okay. Don't take it as if you need to get a day job or a part-time job to support you in fulfilling your dreams and your purpose. Absolutely. It's just part of the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I did it for 7 years before I left my day job. I did Jessica Cares and, my day job for 7 years before I finally left. So yeah, you have to be strategic and be smart about those type of moves. So Kelly, this was I can talk to you all night because you're just a ball of energy and you're just so, wonderful. And I love the fact that you were our last speaker because it's all about, girl power and how we have the ability to create, to nurture, and transform all at the same time. Like we were really gifted. I love being a woman because of that, because we have the ability to create, whether that's literally in the sense of creating new life. We have the ability to nurture, and we have the ability as we're empowering and educating the younger generation, we have the ability to transform in the process too. And I love that. I love the fact that we get to speak to one another. And this was just another indication of just two women still striving for their, to be our best selves and just, sharing your journey. And I just love the fact that, you accepted being on the show today. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I encourage you to keep pushing. I'm going to be looking for that book.
I appreciate you. Oprah better look out because you're incredible and it's so easy to talk to you and you have such a big heart, which I noticed since day one. You're always doing things, always for the greater good, always for the community.
Thank you.
It's clear to see you are so on purpose. It's not even funny. And I really want to honor you and celebrate you. And this was great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kelly. So for everyone watching, go follow Kelly on It's Kelly Espino on Instagram. And if you want to go to her website to, take her up on her coaching, possible upcoming retreats and learn more about what she's doing, go to her website at kellyespino.com. And if you know anyone who's doing just as remarkable work as Kelly is doing, that there's a woman out there really pushing and maybe just haven't gotten the visibility that you feel that she should get for the work that she's doing, please reach out to me at jessica@jessicacares.org and let us know. We'd love to have them on the show to bring exposure to the work that they're doing and for us to be able to support them as well. Please go on our YouTube channel at Asiya Nasir Shahid and subscribe to ours and hit the like button for this video and get to know Kelly just a little bit more. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
Thank you.
That was great, Kelly.
Oh,
I don't think it's over yet.